Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by and welcome to Visual BI's webinar. Today, we will walk you through our webinar titled, Why BI Governance is Important for Agile Business. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. If you have a question during the presentation, please submit it via the Q&A portion of the screen. Simply type your question into the box and click the Send button. Our presenter will address questions at the end of the presentation, time permitting. If you don't hear an answer to your question today, don't worry, we will deliver answers to you individually after the webinar. The webinar is being recorded and a link to the replay will be sent to you via email. Presenting today is Chandler Stevens and Ulysses Hubbard. Chandler is the Vice President of Microsoft BI and Analytics at Visual BI Solutions. And Ulysses is the Vice President of Software Products and Innovation at Visual BI Solutions. I will now turn the presentation over to our presenter.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Chandler Stevens, and as I was introduced, I will be leading the conversation this morning regarding why BI governance is important for Agile Business. Ulysses will be joining me a little bit later in the webinar for some of the demonstrations around BIHub. Just a quick legal disclaimer. This presentation outlines our general product direction and should not be relied on in making a purchase decision. This presentation is not subject to your license agreement or any other agreement with Visual BI Solutions. Visual BI Solutions has no obligation to pursue any course of business outlined in this presentation or to develop or release any functionality mentioned in this presentation. This presentation and Visual BI Solutions strategy and possible future developments are subject to change and may be changed by Visual BI Solutions at any time for any reason without notice. This document is provided without a warranty of any kind, either express or implied, including but not limited to the implied warranties of merchantability, fitness for a particular purpose, or non-infringement. Visual BI Solutions assumes no responsibilities for errors or omissions in this document, except for such changes were caused by Visual BI Solutions intentionally or grossly negligent. All right, with the legalese out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. First off, I want to do a quick introduction to Visual BI. If you're not familiar with Visual BI, we have been in business for a little over 12 years, and we focus exclusively on end-to-end BI and analytics. And as you can see on the slide here, we have worked with a number of leading customers in their respective industries. We provide consulting services across strategy, architecture, managed services, visualization, as well as cloud migrations and training. Our products, which I'll mention momentarily, are really focused around the BI and analytics space across both the SAP Lumira platform as well as the Microsoft Power BI platform. And of course, in our training area, we do provide formal training across various analytic tools such as Power BI, Tableau, and SAP Analytics Cloud. Just a smattering of our portfolio across our product, services, and training. We are both a products and services company. Our services expand mostly in the Fortune 500, but as you can see here, we have a wide variety of different customers that we have had an opportunity to implement BI and analytics solutions for. VBX, which is one of our primary products in the SAP Lumira platform. You can see the customers listed here who have adopted our VBX solution and are using it today. And then for XViz, which is our Power BI visualizations, the list of customers keeps growing every day, it seems, but these are the ones that are highlighted for us. And then ValQ, which is our product planning and forecasting solution built on top of Power BI, is being currently leveraged by a number of customers around the world. And then last but not least, in the lower right-hand corner, BIHub. BIHub is our platform, which is going to be the primary topic for today's webinar, in that we're going to spend time talking about various components of BI governance and how a BIHub solution can help drive and reinforce that. So as I mentioned, the products here, this is a bit of a detailed view of each product. And again, the one we're going to focus on predominantly today is BIHub. BIHub is a product and solution that allows you to discover and consume all your enterprise analytics from one place, from one pane of glass. BIHub supports a number of platforms, as you can see here on the slide, and we're always working towards adding more platforms over time. Some of our most notable customers are listed below, and these are customers that have had an opportunity to implement BIHub and really start leveraging it for their own governance purposes. And BIHub at a basic level on the right-hand side allows you to do discovery for reporting, allows you to consume all your reports in one place, organize that content across the enterprise BI reporting platforms, as well as collaborate and optimize, allowing your users to get the most value out of their reporting infrastructure. So today's agenda, we want to cover off on a couple different key areas. One is the key factors when planning for BI governance. We're going to take a step back away from the solution discussion and talk more about a general BI governance approach and how we think about BI governance at Visual BI. We're also going to focus on enabling a BI governance lifecycle and what steps and what components can be implemented to help start or maybe augment your existing BI governance. And then Ulysses will be joining me a little bit later to do a demonstration of some of the capabilities that I'm described with BIHub. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. First item of today's agenda. So planning for BI governance. And when thinking about the planning conversation, it's first key to understand the importance of BI governance. And I would imagine most of you listening to this webinar or on the call today have probably faced elements of this in your own business. Clearly, the top line important area is around security breaches and really making sure that your security is properly vetted, that it has all of the contingencies planned for, and that the governance plan reflects those. Data privacy and regulatory violations can also be an area of concern when a governance plan is not in place. And so understanding who is actually accessing data, or maybe what the external sharing policies are across different departments or even across some of your partners. Violations of agreements with clients, vendors, suppliers, and employees. Again, very confidential and sensitive information that can be improperly shared or exposed if a BI governance plan is not in place. And then, of course, loss of competitive advantage due to a lack of governance. Sharing, again, private or sensitive information, billing rates if you're a services organization, or profit margins if you're a service company. So these are areas that really factor into why BI governance is important. And then really one of the ones that I think sometimes gets a little bit lost in the discussion is ultimately the decreased usage and failure of a BI tool platform and adoption within the organization. Oftentimes we've seen customers who have invested many resources, both time and financial, into building out a BI solution, only to discover that really their end users are not really embracing or adopting the tools. So over time, users can lose faith in those invested tools, and they revert back to their old ways, or look at an alternative solution. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list of why BI governance is important, but we feel that these are areas that should be looked upon and understood in terms of why to move forward with the BI governance model. So some of the characteristics of the BI governance model that we have worked on with various customers really focus around these characteristics. The ability to define strategic and operational governance policies, both across the business and a functional level. Establishing the rules for your organization's BI usage. Who should have access to what? Why should there be business justification for a certain level of access of potentially sensitive information in the BI platform? How compliance reporting data is handled? How will that data be effectively secured and effectively managed, both at an end user perspective as well as from an all-up solution perspective? Reducing the risks and lowering the cost of total ownership of a BI solution. The ability to improve communications amongst individuals who are using the BI solution, allowing them to collaborate, allowing them to share ideas and provide inline commentary in the reports themselves. Of course, the permissions model, the access management, and information security strategy are all part of a governance model plan. And then process for provisioning new reports, how to onboard new reports or onboard new data sources into the BI solution is another key component of a governance model. And then looking at the support and training to accelerate the return on investment, making sure your end users not only have awareness of the BI solution, but then can be equipped and armed with better training so that they can get the best and most out of that solution. and then providing confidence to end users that results in that overall increased adoption, managing that adoption and understanding what's working and what's not working and taking improvements there. So within our governance framework, we kind of think about it in three specific areas. For the governance plan, we see it as represented through a series of recommendations that are normally associated with a primary driver, which are the people and practices, the required execution, which is the process, and related technologies to accomplish or complete the recommendation, which is focused around the technical implementation. Let me go through each one of these really quickly. First, we have personas, and personas are focused around identifying operational owners, creators, and the consumers of reporting from the BI solution. In a governance plan, it is important to map existing users into several key groups, including data architects, data stewards, power users, analysts, and business users. A strategy should be applied to each group as they will play a role in crafting and advancing governance for the organization. Of course, having a support and service management team frames the integration of the organization's help desk services when applying the governance plan and who will provide overall oversight of BI services. Creating a center of excellence for all business intelligence reporting in general provides the governance plan the ability to adapt to changing business conditions and service innovations over time. It represents a working body of individuals across the organization to provide continuous improvement and drive adoption of BI solutions. And of course, establishing a tactical plan and strategic roadmap is an important component when representing an adoption roadmap that can be measured in potentially days or weeks for short-term goals or months for longer-term goals. And it describes how the organization plans to enable features that are initially both mainstream as well as in preview of the various solutions that comprise the organization's business intelligence solution. So with the people and practices focus, we then move into the process focus. And the process focus is really about planning for a successful governance program that involves a review of how artifacts and deliverables from the BI solutions are going to be developed and managed. The process pillar really outlines key areas that need to be considered when drafting the plan itself. So demand planning. Demand planning focuses on how best to address ongoing requirements from business users as expectations increase with the rollout of the BI solution. Having a plan to review requirements and prioritize against existing business intelligence initiatives is a cornerstone of a strong governance program. Content management and endorsement outlines what considerations need to be made for developing Power BI reports on the potentially various BI platforms in small, medium, and large teams. Policies on source control, quality assurance, and release sign-off all need to be documented with the appropriate process underpinnings in place. Along with this, the notion of endorsing reports is considered a best practice when providing reliable, high-quality reporting to the enterprise. And we'll talk more about that later in the webinar. Hand in hand with content management and endorsements is the delivery and deployment that focuses on what processes are required to provide a smooth experience for end users to discover and leverage the reports from the reporting team. We will focus on how BIHub solution can address this. Implementing a chargeback model allows the organization to measure investments made across resources to deliver BI and analytical reporting. This is an important step in involving governance as it helps the organization understand how to progress their adoption of the BI solutions with the resources available across personnel, licensing, and of course, time. Knowing costs of ongoing implementation can also provide guidance on what areas should be adopted early as BI platforms evolve. And then underlying all the planning efforts mentioned is security, which will entail understanding how the organization is to apply existing privacy and sensitivity policies to the underlying data sources and reports while providing the robustness of the platforms they represent. Oftentimes we get into conversations around role-level security, but considerations are also made in areas of data protection to prevent inappropriate use inside and outside the organization. The implementation is the third leg of the BI governance discussion and really focuses on the policies and planning identified from the first two categories, with an eye on leveraging advancements in the BI platforms. In most governance planning efforts, this effort is usually last, not always, but mostly last, in forming the plan, and represents the area where the most change will occur over time due to the fast-paced nature of the existing BI solution vendors who are innovating their tools and services on their respective platforms. Primary areas to address in the implementation space include monitoring. Monitoring is having a strategy to measure adoption and usage of reports across the BI solutions. While some BI vendors provide some inbox capabilities, we are finding that customers are seeking additional guidance to understand what options exist to track and act upon trends in reporting. Important trends to stay on top of include report usage so that resources are properly allocated across licensing and resources. Knowing that what reports are most visited can assist the reporting team to adopt best practices for development and provide improvements over time. Setting standards in the user experience or UX and visualizations is another important consideration in the implementation when thinking about accessibility and performance for the end user. Consideration should also be made for whether to allow third-party visualizations to be available for the report developers on their respective platforms. Organizations would need to set guidelines early so that their BI reporting development teams know how best to deliver intuitive visualizations on the platform of choice. Having a semantic model is key when working towards the goal of organizational self-service analytics and business intelligence. Setting standards around what tool or tools are to be used in establishing the broader model need to be factored into the governance program. And then administration and configuration will outline how the organization should configure key settings to support the underpinnings of the governance plan. The BI platform administration team can apply settings that will reinforce governance policies and rules in areas of exporting data, publishing, settings within the various BI platform workspaces, custom visuals, audit logging, and data classification. And then last but not least is the data asset discovery, which is focused on how end users can explore the existing universe of reports available within their respective BI solutions. So this framework really serves as the discussion points and particular areas that we like to have in mind when we start really pulling together the governance plan. So when driving the BI governance strategy, there are some specific focus areas, with the framework in mind that we start really putting some true structure around. The first one is the governance plan elements listed here. And really, this is just a slightly different way of organizing the previous slide, where we want to make sure that we understand the various elements across administration, licensing, what security standards are in place, or what security standards need to be implemented, the readiness and enablement of all who are using the solution, how it will be delivered, roles and responsibilities. These are all things that factor into a governance plan. And at a bare minimum, you want to make sure that you have these represented or well understood when forming your own governance approach. The next one is the reporting control model. The reporting control model really focuses on what level of controls need to be in place for the various layers of reporting, starting at the bottom of the triangle for personal reporting, which is typically done at a private individual level. Perhaps they're doing some exploration, they may be doing some analysis of some data, and they really just need to focus on building reports for themselves to potentially then graduate or move up the triangle into project reporting. And as you move up all the way to the Enterprise Data Warehouse, or EDW, at the top, you typically see a tighter amount of controls as opposed to the lower layers. And so understanding what that reporting control model needs to look like is an important factor in the BI governance plan. And of course, monitoring and measuring is another area of focus, and understanding usability and performance, measuring use of the systems and frequency, and tracking the various reports that are getting more clicks and dashboards that are getting high clicks as well. And then delivering value back to users and driving adoption by monitoring how well the BI solution is performing, how well are we getting reports rendered, and what are the experience from the end user perspective. Of course, security is a big part of the monitor and measure focus as well, making sure that the monitoring is placed to help ensure compliance with whatever regulatory requirements if they exist. And then data source usage. All the reports that are built on top of the BI platform obviously are sourced from a certain number of data sources. And so understanding what that usage information looks like to identify potential flaws or even overlap, making sure that if there's one source, that all the reports are using that one source, as opposed to having potentially overlap in data sources. And then delivery and deployment, and really kind of thinking about it in terms of how do we deliver? Do we deliver from a bottoms up, which would basically be a business-led self-service BI, or is it more corporate BI, which is more of a top-down? Each one of these scenarios has its pros and cons. The business-led self-service BI, in this scenario, business users have the most involvement and control. Although some governed data sources can be used as part of the overall solution, which is encouraged, there could also be non-structured, non-governed data sources involved, such as industry statistics purchased from a third party. This allows for exploration of patterns that go beyond the data recorded in the corporate data warehouse. The critical difference is that the business unit owns and supports this type of solution. Compare and contrast that to the IT-managed self-service BI. In this scenario, business users employ the BI solution as the standard reporting layer over governed data sources. IT will produce and govern a data layer of high quality, which then adheres to a confirmed enterprise master data. At the same time, the business owns the reporting layer, which may or may not adhere to the same development cycles and governance standards promoted by the IT organization. And then the corporate BI is a scenario where IT really retains the full ownership of the entire solution and releases reports to users for consumption. This scenario is sometimes referred to as an enterprise reporting or canned reporting. And again, each one of these has a pro and con, but generally we are seeing customers start to gravitate towards this notion of the IT managed self-service BI model, which is where IT really owns the data sources and works through the data layer, providing the level of access needed, whereas the business then can build on top of those curated data sources and build the reports. So with all that in mind now, we're now going to kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about a governance lifecycle with the BIHub. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, BIHub is a solution that allows you to pull together all of your various BI platforms under one umbrella and allow your users to effectively search, leverage the reporting, as well as allow you as the BIHub solution administrator to manage those sources. So when we think about the governance lifecycle of BIHub, we think of it in terms of various areas. The first one is managing source platforms. And managing source platforms is about really kind of setting standards in terms of what are the sources that are available for the business to use in the BI reporting space. And then we also work on defining the persona profiles. Personas, again, if you remember from the framework, is really where we start identifying categories of use: a data steward, a data architect, a business user, a power user. All of these are persona profiles which need to be defined and can be effectively used to help define policies for use in the BIHub solution. And then applying consistent categorization, where we focus on taking all of the content that may already exist and starting to really understand some of the metadata around that content and providing consistent ways to categorize the material. Setting access controls is another key component, making sure that the appropriate level of access is granted, as well as managing that access and applying the appropriate business justification when new access requests are come in. And then applying reporting endorsements, the idea of having the ability to take a series of reports and maybe put a little bit of a tag or classification on those so that end users understand these are reports that represent fairly common domain topics such as a customer or a product. So applying reporting endorsements is an important part of building a governance so that your users can understand which reports are really kind of more the gold standard and are very trustworthy, as opposed to reports that maybe are coming from a department level and maybe don't quite go through the rigor or the process of becoming the official system of record. And then enabling discovery and collaboration, a very important part of governance, where you want your users to have the ability to come in and find the information they need, at the same time allowing them to collaborate amongst themselves, as well as collaborate back to the development teams for feedback. This is an important part of the governance, which drives consistency and allows for users to really feel invested in the process and willing to engage in the governance program. And then monitoring consumption and making adjustments, an important part of the process where over time, as you start seeing trends and patterns of usage you can begin understanding if certain reports are considered more high value, or inversely, if certain reports are seeing no traffic or no interest, perhaps looking at those as opportunities to deprecate those or remove those from your BI solution. And overall, as you can see here on the slide, governance is a journey, not a destination. This is a cyclical approach. So as you come out of the monitor, consumption, and adjust, you may have to start over and start thinking about new platforms that the business would like to onboard. And so all of this process is applied accordingly. Now, to kind of walk through each one of these very quickly, because I want to get to the demo with Ulysses. The first one, managing BI platforms and reports. Here's where BIHub really shines in terms of helping you kind of hone in and curate the sources that the reporting are going to come from, as well as the actual reports that are going to be represented on the platforms. So this is an important concept in BIHub, where we have the ability to effectively pull together reporting solutions from various vendors, SAP, Microsoft, and so forth, and also curate the reports that are available in those platforms. So BIHub can help manage that process, which helps reinforce the governance of appropriate BI solution sources. And then defining personas and aligning those with appropriate BI platforms. BIHub can be configured to provide specific access to explicit BI platforms for the users. And so those users represent basically a persona. So in this case, an analyst may have access to maybe a subset of all the BI platforms, because it may not be appropriate for them to have access to all of the BI services within your enterprise. Whereas a power user or maybe a data architect may require a broader level of access. So building these personas first as part of your governance plan, and then applying these as users are onboarded as those personas, as part of those personas, is an important part of the governance approach. Applying consistent categorization. So this is the metadata tagging discussion, where if you tag reports and really kind of classify about what the data represents, where it came from, how is it changed since it was originally created or captured, who is authorized to use it and how, as well as what is the sensitivity. So BIHub provides the ability for you to tag or provide metadata that extends the definition of a report, and again, allows you to not only set access based on the tags, but also, quite honestly, allow discoverability. As users are onboarded into the BI solution, they can start searching for common phrases and common topics in a domain, and those tags will help reinforce them to find the appropriate reports. And then reporting business justification with access control. The idea that as new users are onboarded, or perhaps users start discovering new reports, you may want to manage the access to those. You can certainly provide the ability for them to request, but you want to have a business justification process that says, okay, does this person or this analyst really need access to, say, potentially sensitive financial data? And so the BIHub allows you the ability to really manage that access and reinforce those user policies for retrieving those reports. And then applying reporting endorsement. So once a report has been brought in and onboarded into BIHub, you have the opportunity to effectively certify that report. And examples of this on this slide are Platinum, which is effectively a certified reporting that is curated from trusted and verified data sources. A Gold might represent maybe regional or departmental reporting that's focused on a very specific set of the business or domain. And then Silver might be more of the lower level reporting. If you remember the reporting model access triangle, where it represents more project team or individual reporting. And then, of course, enabling discovery and collaboration, another key component of governance. This is the follow-on from the tagging discussion earlier, where having the tagging allows users to really go and find reports, use the common terminology that they know that aligns with the business to find the appropriate report or the appropriate data source to use in the solution. And then conversely, once the report is available and the user is in the report, allowing for collaboration and inline reporting commentary, so that not only can end users collaborate and work with their colleagues, but also they can use it as an opportunity to maybe provide feedback to the source development teams, the teams that are responsible for maintaining the reports or maintaining the data sources. So enabling this collaboration cycle, if you will, is a great way to enforce governance in terms of making sure that the end users feel that they have a part to play and that they can provide feedback as they're working with the various reports. And again, BIHub provides the ability for you to provide that commentary across the various reports. And then monitoring consumption and making adjustments, looking at which reports are seeing a huge number of clicks, or which reports are more used as opposed to reports that are lower on the clicks and potentially may not really be leveraged at all. And then looking to make adjustments, maybe deprecating those less viewed reports so that they're not taking up resources on your BI platform. And then also consider launching internal marketing efforts. If you start seeing efforts around, or start seeing reports that are really getting a high amount of adoption, looking for ways to maybe annotate those or categorize those, as well as when a new platinum report is available or a gold report, looking for ways to launch internal marketing efforts and then tracking that as that marketing effort is received by the organization. Really using this as a way to kind of understand what's working well from the reporting perspective and what are things that we could do better to provide more value to our end users. So I'd like to introduce Ulysses onto the call and have him take us through a tour of some of the demo capabilities that BIHub provides in reinforcing governance.
Thank you, Chandler. Well, since Chandler did such a good job at explaining all the BI governance and how that applies to BIHub and giving you some screenshots, instead of me going to the same thing, what I want to do is, for the purpose of this demo, I want to pretend like I am a report user, right? Who is using BIHub for the first time after the company has implemented BI governance. So to me, that user is probably been struggling with trying to find reports on different BI platforms, not knowing which reports I can trust and which reports I cannot trust, not knowing which reports are complete or validated. If I have any questions with about the report or anything else or about the data, I have no idea who to go and contact. So I've been struggling with all these different things. Again, I'm pretending that I'm a user, and then I'm gonna go into BIHub and I guess go through it and see what difference I would see now that I have everything into one single place in a single interface. And also, so hopefully you can see what value BIHub brings to your users, or if you're a user, what value will bring to you as you go from what I call a jungle of reports, when you have thousands of reports that nobody can identify or see which one to trust and which to not, and then going into a clean place like BIHub, where everything is organized based on BI governance standards by the company. Okay, so here we go. I think the first thing that I would notice is that all the thousands of reports that are out there that were causing me to not know where to even start, it's gone, right? The point of having the BI governance is for the company to clean up that mess, right? Clean up the list of thousands of reports, and then give users a curated list of reports. You know, telling users, okay, these are the reports that you're supposed to run, right? Or these are the reports that have been validated by some people, and then you can trust them. Or if there's some reports that have not been trusted, but you still want to make them available, then still show them in here, but have a way to differentiate them with multiple different things. Like we'll talk about certification, tags, comments, description, and stuff like that. Right. So I log in and I see that I already have some reports here that somebody might have put in here for me. Maybe the power user that's assigned to my business area. Maybe they already created some of these dashboards for me and put them out in my account. So that's kind of cool. And then I can go, obviously when I log in the first time, I won't have any favorites, but it's very easy for me to go to some of the reports and just click on the heart icon, and they'll immediately show up in the favorites area. So I can see all my favorite reports into a single place. Again, the favorites, it doesn't matter if the report comes from Tableau, if it comes from Spotfire, from business objects. It doesn't matter. I can just put them all in here, so I don't have to go to different systems. I just go to BIHub, which, by the way, is fully secure and is fully single sign-on. So I don't even have to log in. I just log into. I just click on the link, take me to BIHub, and there I am. They have all my reports in a single place. Okay. So right off the bat, that helps a lot. So because I don't have to go to multiple places, right? And the reports that are here are the reports that have already have at least some kind of curated, right? And the other thing that I would notice right away is what is this gold and platinum? What is that? That tells me right away um, that some reports have been certified. In the case of us, we decided to do, we have silver, gold, and platinum as a certification. The silver we decided to do, for example, if it's been certified or validated by a power user, it could be a silver report. If it's been validated by IT, it could be a gold report. And if it has been validated by a power user or a subject matter expert and IT, then it's a platinum report. That way, immediately I know which reports I can trust fully, completely, which ones I can't trust because they've been developed by IT or by SME, depends on who I trust the most, and which reports don't have any certification, and I know that I need to take those with a little grain of salt, or at least go and ask to see who wrote the report, um, and see if I can trust it. So that's the first thing that will help me really with the trusting of the report, and also most of the stuff that I'm talking about, they also increase the potential for adoption, right? Because the more I trust the system, the more I'll be able to go in there and use more of it. Another thing that I would notice right away, it's okay, I have some descriptions, some names of the reports, and then some descriptions of the report. These descriptions might come from the underlying BI system, like in this case, ClickView or Spotfire, but they don't have to be. So if there's no description in the underlying system, in the BI system, in BIHub, the administrators or the power users, they can create their own descriptions in here, right? Again, the point is to give users as much information as they can, so they can use this as a self-service and also trust the system because it has description, it has names, and the reports in here are somewhat curated and validated. All right, so let's continue here. So to run a report, all I have to do is kind of hover over it, and then I click on it, and it'll tell me I'm working on it, and it'll show up here in another tab. While that tab's running, I can always go back to my other reports, right? So it doesn't tie up my system while I'm doing that. Um, I have the report here. If I wanted to open it into a new tab, I just click on that one, and it opens up in a different tab, so I can have more real estate to play with, right? So going back here, another very cool thing is, for example, if I can see that this report has been viewed 13 times, and just to let you know, this is our test system, so there's not a whole lot of activity, but in your own system, you probably see that this report has been run 500 times, right? Or it's been viewed 500 times. Then you know that you can probably trust that report because there's a whole bunch of people using it, right? Or this is people that have been using it a whole bunch of times. So if it's been used a lot of times, then you know you can trust it. If it's never been used, or if it's only been used 1 or 2 times, then maybe you don't have to trust it as much. All right, so that's another thing. And what is this? I can look into this. So I have that view, and then if I click on this one, I get a different view. Same reports except no thumbnails, right? That's another view. And then click on this one. That's another view. All right. So it's the same report except going down the page with more information. So that still tells me the number of views, but here it tells me the subject matter expert. So that's another field that we added here in BIHub. Again, to tell users, if you have a question about this report, this is the person that you need to go and ask, right? So if you have a question about the performance analyzer report, go to DevRush. If you have a problem or a question about sales and marketing, go to Ulysses, right? Okay, let's see what else we got here. Let me show the documentation is here. So let's say I click on this and I see this documentation. There's an overview report. I know who to contact. But what is this documentation? I think this is really important for the case of governance. What this allows you to do within BIHub is you can create a whole document that gives all kinds of information about this particular report. So without having to pick up the phone and ask anybody, I can just come in here and say, okay, that's an executive view of profitability. Who requested it? Okay, it was requested by the VP of Global Sales. When it was requested, when it was completed, what kind of certification it's got, when was the certification done, what is the department that requested it or the intended audience. This is a document. You can put in whatever you want. This is just our example of what we did to show the use case, but you can put in this document anything you want, anything that makes sense. In this case, we added things like data warehouse tables, right? Data sources, what filters have been applied to the report. We have a long description here, and then you can have the SME contact, phone number, and email. Again, the purpose of this is to give users as much information as they need to, and so they can trust the system, so they can start using it more, increase the adoption, and get more out of your BI systems. So we also talked about, or Chandler talks about endorsing, right? Endorsing reports. One thing of endorsing is obviously the views. If you have a report that's been viewed many times, then you can, that's kind of, even though nobody's endorsing it, you know that people are using it. So it gives you an idea. Also, the comments will also give you an idea of who's using it and what. Obviously, the SME, if an SME kind of puts their name on it and says, okay, I'm the SME for this report, then that's a way of endorsing the report. And obviously, the certification as well, right? That's another way of endorsing the report and saying, this report is trustworthy, go for it. So Chandler talk about auditing, and you can do your own little auditing as a user. You can see which reports have been viewed the most, or the ones that have been used recently. Obviously, as an administrator, you can access to all the audit data that actually tells you who's looking at what reports, when are they looking at the reports. So you can be more proactive about, at month end, you need to make sure that your support team it's available, because you know that at that point everybody's running the reports and they're going to have some questions and things like that. So go back to my favorites. Okay. Another thing that Chandler touched on was the consistent categorization of reports, right? So if you're looking for reports related to procurement, for example, right, then you can, within BIHub, you can tag those reports with the tag of procurement so that people can find those reports quickly. If the reports that are meant for analysis, then they can you can tag the reports based on analysis so that people can easily find those categorizations. We call them tags, but they're really categorizations. You can just, as far as the being able to discover reports, obviously you can browse through some of the reports that have been put in here by the power users or the administrators, but you can also just search the reports if you want. So let's say I want to search for sales. It'll show me all the reports that match the sales keyword, and it'll show me here. Again, even in this view, I still have access to the other views, and even on this one, I can do some more filtering. So if I just looking for forecast, there you go. I can just see those, right? Those the ones that match the forecast. Or maybe I only want to see those sales reports that in which the subject matter expert is this guy. There you go. That's the way you do it. So that's a way to discover the reports, find them. Now, a very interesting feature of BIHub is that we're bringing all of the reports from your BI platforms into BIHub. But we're not bringing them. We're making them accessible through BIHub, right? But we don't make them immediately available to all the users, because part of the point of BI governance is for you to curate the reports and only show those reports that actually make sense, that they should be on a clean system like this. However, there are some reports that are out there that people might think that they need, right? And they'll still be able to find it. So let's say I do a search for sales. I can still look at the inaccessible reports. I mean, these are the reports that are out there in the BI system. They could be available, but they're not available to me today, right? So I can come in here and say, come on. Let's say I want these general sales opportunities. I can click on this, and then I can't request access to this report. I think that one's already been requested. Let me pick up a different one. Request access to the report, and then yes, I can just say, give me access. And what this will do, this will set up a request to give access to this particular report, so the administrator or power user or whomever can assign access to that report to me. And then next time after they've been granted me access, then I'll be able to see that report here in BIHub. So for the most part, I do want to leave some time for questions, but basically what as Chandler was saying, part of the BI governance is to make sure that people adopt the reports and the BI systems. And when you're able to trust the systems, when you're able to know who to contact if you have any questions, when you're able to see more information without even having to ask anybody, when you don't get lost into a jungle of reports and only you see the reports that you really need to, um, when you can add tags and add documentation and add comments, find new reports, all of that helps you to enable that adoption of your BI systems. And obviously, as you get more adoption, then you get a lot more out of it than if you just keep them in different BI systems and having to go all over the place trying to look for the reports, right? And having to ask which report to trust and which not to trust. And with that, I finish my presentation. Send it back to you, Chandler.
Thank you very much, Ulysses, for that review. So just to kind of recap, BI governance can provide clarity in areas of the people, practices, process, and implementation. Having a governance plan is anymore not an option, it's a must-have. And so if you have a governance plan today, I would encourage you to take a look at BIHub as ways to potentially enhance or augment that governance plan. Of course, if for some reason your governance plan isn't quite where you want it to be, then you may take an opportunity to look at your governance framework and establishing that first to ensure that your BI stakeholders have the right expectations set with both the business and IT. And then a BIHub solution, as Ulysses demonstrated, can really help drive and reinforce governance while increasing adoption for a high return on your investments in your BI solutions. And don't forget the BIHub lifecycle for governance listed here on the left hand of the slide. All right, I'm going to go ahead and see the first question here. The question is, who should be involved in early discussions for BI governance? Which is a great question. Typically what we see is you want a mix of both IT as well as stakeholders from the business. And you really want a broad representation of not just the decision makers, but you also need individuals who represent all facets of the personas. So the end user, the data architects, the power users, as well as decision makers, both who will be managing the services, typically on the IT side, as well as your business stakeholders who ultimately will be leading the way in terms of driving the adoption and setting the standards around the use of BI. Another question that I'm seeing here, I have several BI platforms that are implemented today with little governance. How can I get started and minimize the disruption to my business? Another great question. So typically what we see there is you really don't try to, as we say, boil the ocean in one implementation cycle. What we typically do with those kinds of scenarios is we first look at the usage of the BI platforms. Which one is more prevalent? Which one is maybe higher profile from a business perspective? Which ones are maybe higher risk, either from the platform itself in terms of its implementation or in terms of its legacy. You know, some BI platforms are not quite as robust as others. And so we always try to look for opportunities to, you know, take the least amount of impact from a business perspective and begin formulating a governance plan there. And at the same time, making sure that the stakeholders for those other areas are in the informed column. They're made aware of what's happening, and then of course having a roadmap and a plan in terms of how you begin onboarding those other platforms. So it will factor across a couple of different areas, but typically we try to focus on the ones that the business feels needs to have probably governance applied first, and so we balance that with trying to avoid any disruption. Other areas that we can avoid disruption around focus on really looking at the power user community and understanding what that persona is doing within the organization and working with them in a bit of a grassroots effort to understand the patterns, understand how they're using the data or the reporting they're building from the data, and then using that as another way to come in and start evangelizing some of the capabilities of building governance and really getting their support. And then, of course, having a champion at a leadership level is another big factor. Having the ability to have executive sponsorship or some level of leadership willing to put in their capital, as it were, into the process is also another area we've seen success. If you don't really have support from the leadership or the executive side of the business, it makes it very difficult to implement governance, because oftentimes there may need to be changes in process and changes in the way the business needs to think about the BI solution. So we always look for ways to have that sponsorship, as well as make sure that we have the high engaged users, those power users, working with our teams as well. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but we'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank everybody who joined today's webinar. My contact information is here. I'm Chandler Stevens. Ulysses Hubbard is listed here as well. If there are any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out. And we just want to thank everyone for taking time today. And as always, you can go and visit us on BIHub.com to learn more about the BIHub solution. And with that, we will go ahead and conclude the webinar. Thank you again for your time, and have a great day.